Good evening and welcome to tonight's show from DJ and TV, Disc Jockey News TV. Tonight's show is brought to you by Electra Voice, DJ Event Planner, DJ Trivia, Odyssey Innovative Designs and Cases, Analytics Professional, Promo Only, and the DJ and TV Insiders. Good evening and welcome to our second show here on DJ and TV on Wednesday night. I'm John Young, your host, and tonight we're going to be talking to a gentleman from, well, a little bit farther north than me, but not by much. But from the beautiful city of Duluth, Minnesota, Dean Carlson. Good evening, Dean.
Hey, John. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, doing very, very well. Yeah, you really aren't that farther north of me.
We might be pretty close.
A little bit.
Equator-wise.
We're not Ben Stowe north. I mean, that's like...
No, definitely not Ben Stowe north.
That's way up there, man. Way up there.
I don't live in an igloo, so...
Exactly. And Ben does. Shh. We weren't supposed to talk about that.
I didn't mean to let that out.
So tonight, we're going to be talking wedding side and dealing with the creativity in your clients. This is a great topic right now because yes, we are stuck at home, but I have got more couples that are calling and wanting to plan, wanting to ask questions about sales and such, but they're wanting to just really dig into their fall weddings, which seems to be kind of where most of them are feeling confident and such. And adding some creativity to their event is certainly something. And you're going to kind of dig into that a little bit for us tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. I for a long time I worked at a large multi-app company, and we were very stuck in a very similar pattern because we only hired DJs that would work for 2 to 3 years, right?
Right. Yeah.
And as I started to grow as a DJ, the things that I was able to provide for my clients also started to grow, and I began to get really creative with them, and so that company was now holding me back, which eventually led to me opening up my own company, and then getting into that aspect that I really enjoy, which is being creative with clients. In fact, if I was going to say one of the reasons why I'm still DJing after 35 years, it's the creative aspect that I get to do with my clients now. Music, like I said before, it comes and goes. Right. I still love to mix music and stuff. Don't get me wrong. But I really love the creative aspect of weddings. I really do. This
is actually a question I asked Jordan last night or the night before, whatever, I don't know, weeks blend, what's that part that is fulfilling? So describe a super fulfilling moment for Dean Carlson before we jump into the show. So that'll help, I think, put people into a better perspective of why this is such an important thing to you.
Okay. So I love to pull off the things that people don't normally do. So if I can come up with something creative that's like never been done at a wedding before, or maybe take a new spin on it, and then I pull it off, because a lot of the stuff that I create, sometimes I have no idea how to do it when I create it. So I have to not only get to the creative part, but then I have to actually create that part of it and make it workable before the wedding happens overall, which is where we're at right now and what you talked about when we first started. What a great time right now while we're all cooped up at home, and another thing I was going to mention later, but I'll just mention it now. One of my ideas about the coronavirus is make sure that you're paying extra attention to your clients at this point, extra phone calls, extra attention and stuff. Here's where you can really get into it with them and really start talking, the fun things. Get them excited about their day again, because right now they're not feeling excited. They're worried, especially May weddings, which a lot of mine have already started to, move out. July weddings, which are in that, undetermined area at this point, June, July. You can really start getting them juiced up about that right this second. And of course, August on and stuff like that. So, yeah.
And really, I think just having that communication right now, because obviously you said there was that uneasiness that's there, but just the side of it that no matter what happens, you're going to still be able to create something and have a beautiful moment. And
Yeah.
it might be changed from what they're wanting to do, but that's okay. And
Absolutely, the first thing that you need to do when you're talking about getting creative with the clients is you need to there's a marketing side of that, and I can get to that in a second. But you need to give the clients permission to to at least look at that, overall. So you need to open that door somehow, some way to them. That gives them the idea that, hey, we can explore this idea and see what's available to us overall. And then, of course, you have to give equally, besides giving them the ability to, explore the possibility, you have to give them the absolute authority to say no.
so you're going to need
an
to give me
idea.
an example of that, the permission to explore that possibility. Well,
Okay.
set stage.
When I'm starting to working with planning meetings, for sure, this is exactly where I start with them. I want to give my clients the opportunity to see different things that I've done before overall. So I'm going to give them some small ideas,
Mm-hmm.
some easy stuff that maybe they've heard of before overall, kind of ease them into the overall, okay, well, maybe we could do that. And then I'm going to give them some some extreme things that I've done overall. And I'm really going to push that limit with them. And it's super necessary to do that. You need to give them something that they go, whoa, I would never do that my way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Because what's happening is they're going to put a limit on what you can do if you don't show them that other people have done something even while they're crazier. But you just have to show them where it fits in and how it doesn't detract from the entire day of the wedding. So let me give you an example of that.
Yes, please.
Grand March entrances are a fantastic area to be creative with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
There are typically 3 different kinds of Grand March entrances that we as DJs can do with our clients. There's the basic Bob and Mary coming into high pitched music.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and everybody does that. It's not super creative, but it's energetic and it's what everybody's accustomed to. The second one is what I call custom intros, where you write a story about each person and you do a little write-up, probably personalized music and stuff like that. And I always tell people that they can always fall back, to that option. And it literally is what 95% of my clients do pick overall.
Sure.
But then there's the one that I like the most, the one that I think sells the most weddings later on, which is the creative, Grand March entrances, the ones where you get really out there with them overall. So I was at a client meeting, this probably 8-9 years ago, and the groom's phone rang, and it was the cantina music from Star Wars. And I said, "Oh, you love Star Wars?" And then we nerded out together. I saw Star Wars 47 times in the movie theater when I was a kid. I don't know that I would say that I continued my life to the level Ben has, but I still love Star Wars. Anyways, so we had our nerd moment, and it turned out that his family had turned them down from actually wearing outfits at their wedding. They wanted to be Princess Leia and Luke Skywalker at their wedding. Mom, Dad said, "No, we're paying for this," and no. And the venue that they chose was this swanky venue, up here in Duluth. It was super nice. And when the wedding started, they had a 7-tier cake that had a waterfall going down on each side of it. So you get the image that it was that fairy tale wedding still.
Nice.
Here I am. I pitch, well, okay, your mom and dad said no to the costumes, but did they say anything else about anywhere else that we might be able to use this? And she said, no. And I said, okay, well, let's explore that. Let's see what we can do with this idea. All right. And see what we come up with. Eventually I came up with, we did the whole word scrolling on the screen with the backstory. And this is before episode 7, 8, and 9 came out. Our backstory was episode 7. There is strife among the wedding party as they are all fighting over who is going to give the toast tonight. That was the premise of the story as it marched up the screen.
Uh-huh.
And in this room, there were 6 different entrances. I had actually 3 other DJ companies come along with me to do this because they thought it was such a cool idea. They wanted to help out to make it a reality. So I had like microphones and I was queuing doors. And the wedding party was coming in from random doors. Nobody knew where people were coming from. They all had lightsabers. We had light mist in the room. We had lasers going across the ceiling of this whole place.
Wow.
The wedding party came in the room, and then we introduced the bride and groom, and they came in and did a lightsaber battle with the entire wedding party and killed them all. So there's just dead wedding party all over the place.
All over the floor.
Yeah, it was epic. And so I give that as an extreme idea. Okay, like that's over the top. But I also tell them, hey, listen, this was at a wedding that had a 7-tier cake with waterfall. Okay, it was just one moment of the day. The whole wedding wasn't like that. I also utilize things like, you know what? It's not just the bride's day, but it's also the groom's day. So where can we fit him in there? Typically, grooms are going to be a little bit more edgy about things. And the brides will reel them back. Yes, for sure they will. But this does give them a moment that they can go, oh, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden they're invested in the day in a different way. And brides will turn around and see that and really fall in love with that. You know,
Sure.
all of a sudden, my groom, who hated going to the 5th tasting of cake and yada yada yada, you know, so it was. It turns out that all of a sudden he had
has
a say in
interest.
that day.
Yeah.
So, so that all started from the phone ringing, and me just paying attention, you know, and just saying, hey, here we are. Oh, you like this? Well, let's explore that. Let's see where we're going from that. But that doesn't really tell us how to get clients to that point if they're not there yet.
Certainly not. But yeah, maybe just that permission that I wanted to give that.
Right.
Yeah.
So first thing you need to do is make sure that your marketing is representing that idea. Be creative yourself in your marketing, the things that you're sending out, the way your website looks overall, everything that you say and do with a client. You want to make sure that you're giving that permission to be creative overall. So it starts for me. The biggest part of it isn't so much my website. It's the booklet that I send out to my clients. It's a 20-page booklet that I developed over 15 years. And every ounce of that booklet talks about creativity at weddings. The front 2 pages have pictures of me and the other DJs. The last 2 pages have our prices, but the 16 pages in the middle are all creative. Everything from every portion of the day, they're giving 2 or 3 different creative ideas to the bride and groom to start thinking about. So that's where it starts. So before they even book us, they're seeing creative ideas. It also helps us stand apart from everybody else too. I mean, if they're calling the local giant multi-op in town, they do a great job. They've great DJs that work there, but they are, like I said, they're a little bit more limited on the creativity side because of how their DJs work within the company. Not everybody's as fortunate as Mike Walter and, can have DJs that work for him for 15, 16 years. A lot of multi-ops deal with that 2 to 3 year college range,
kids.
Yeah. So, start with your marketing overall. And then from there, it works into the planning, sessions of the day. And it really starts by talking about giving them that permission overall to explore this. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm moving around my notes here a little bit.
No problem.
But so, in the planning meeting, I also I made a note at a conference that I spoke of about 6 years ago about my creative process at least, and I want to get my clients saying yes a lot.
Yes.
So when you design your planning meeting, and you should have a design for your planning meeting, it should have a plan. How do we get people through an entire day? And I skip around on purpose. So I start with all the easy stuff, okay, so we have ceremony. It starts at 3, right? Yes. There's 1 yes. All right. Dinner is at what time? 6 o'clock. Yes. It's at 6 o'clock. We're going to end at midnight, correct? Yes. We're going to end at midnight. You want to do a first dance? Yes, I do want to do a first dance. You see where I get them in that habit of saying yes, 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 yes. Everything is going smoothly before I start dumping into the areas of the night that we can start to be creative. And sometimes, clients will have that right off the get-go, but tonight we're not talking about that. We're talking about getting clients too open to that possibility of creativity, so it's a very strategic attack plan overall. Now, I do have some advantages that other DJs don't have, maybe. But if you don't have some of these things, you should consider them, like Love Story. I think Love Story is one of those fantastic things. If you haven't had a chance to get out and do one of Mark's workshops, I highly suggest that. That's a creative aspect of the night, but 99% of my clients do that. Why do they do that? Because I get a lot of referral business, and they've seen it before. So it's really comfortable to them, but it's also a creative aspect that's not at every wedding. Something I added about 5 years ago. Bill Herman does his workshop now.
Entertainment experience.
What was that?
Entertainment experience.
Yeah, the entertainment experience. Yeah, my mind is going as I'm getting older. Maybe I do have the corona. Who knows? Anyways, I don't know. But he taught me how to do custom recordings, and those are super creative, and very different every wedding that you do. So, I have those two tools that are pretty solidly bookend in there to start that process down. So I'm very good at both of those two things. I've been doing Love Story now. I took the first Mark workshop that came to Minnesota, and that was 2005, 2006. So 13, 14, 15 years now.
Been a long time. Yeah.
So I've done, if 99% of my weddings do it, and they do, I've done 500 of them. So I've gotten pretty comfortable at that. The custom recording is a little less so, since that's newer, and that's taken some time to get clients into that. But having some examples of that is another thing, which, once we're starting to get into this, the next step of all this is having a book of ideas ready for your clients. All right. So we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We're getting them to say yes. The next strategy is to start opening up that creative thing and start looking and listening for spots where we could use that. The most common spots are grand march entrances or dinner kissing for the creative aspect of the night. Cake cuttings can be a part of that, I've noticed over the years, for those people still doing those things, because, we have cupcake, stuff and all that stuff nowadays. There's spots where we can make that super interesting also. So the next part of my, once I get them saying yes to all the basics, next I bring them down to those parts which I know I can really personalize with people. And this is where I start opening things up and start asking them a lot of questions. By this point, they've said yes a lot. It's really opened up their ability to trust you in a different way. I mean, at my company, everybody books through Barb, and they have this amazing trust through her. So I have to come in after that and live up to what she's telling everybody about me, which is that took me a couple of years to get used to that. But, I found that these planning meetings, I needed to build that trust again with them. Now, for those of you that do your own sales and such overall, you've already built that trust. Maybe you can start this step a lot earlier. But for me, I have to wait till a little bit later in the planning meeting before I start that step in general, overall. And then I just start asking questions. I mean, I go crazy. I'll ask them everything. I'm going off the wall. So, where'd you go to school? Did you play sports in high school? Where did you hang out? Where have you traveled to? Do you play board games? Do you, anything that I can come up with on the spot to draw information out of them? And what I'm looking for is just ideas. The longer you do this, the quicker those ideas start popping in your head, because you've got some basis to bring things to. But originally, you really have to work at it. You have to think about it. You look at your list and you go, okay, this guy was a Dungeons and Dragons playing person. He likes Hogwarts, and okay, yeah, I can do something with that. And like dinner kissing, we did have somebody that likes Harry Potter, so we did something with Quidditch for dinner kissing. One year Barb did, that worked out extremely well. And it just came from, what books do you read?
Sure. So let's put a pause in this. When you're having these conversations and you're asking all these questions, are you notebook and writing
Absolutely.
things down heavily,
Yeah.
or
Yeah. You could probably, let's see. This is oh, you can't see
can't
it.
see it?
Well, that's too bad. But this is my planning forms right here.
Yeah, there we
This
go.
whole back page is nothing but notes on it, and there's probably 4 of those pages on here that are doing that. And I'll make 2 columns. I'll make his and hers. And then I'll put stuff in between that are common to both of them.
Sure.
You're definitely looking for stuff that's common to both of them, but it isn't always there.
Mm-hmm.
And, things like Grand March entrances, you can lean a little heavier towards one or the other, especially if all of a sudden their ideas are, really powerful. So I had a groom, I actually went over to his house to do a planning meeting. When I walked in, I don't know if you've ever seen these pop heads. They're pop. They make these little figurines of every character, the anime character, and game character and stuff like this. He had a wall of them in his house.
Those like bobbleheads?
Yeah, they're like bobbleheads,
Okay.
but they're not bobbleheads. They're
Okay.
pop. I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah,
what
I'm
that
not
stands for.
familiar with that, but yeah.
Anyways, so he had a wall of this stuff in his house. And it's just paying attention to that. Sometimes it's the surrounding. If you're doing the meeting at their house, don't be afraid to look around and see what's on the walls.
Mm-hmm.
A picture is worth 1,000 ideas.
Sometimes,
really
yeah, for sure.
So for this guy, it turns out he was a Pokemon fanatic. Oh my gosh. This was one of my best ones in the last couple of years. I did this one last summer.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, yeah, I love Pokemon. And I said, well, we could do something with that. And he says, what? Here's the thing. I never come up with the ideas immediately on the spot with my clients. I just tell them, that's a great idea. Let me explore that.
Sure.
Okay. Let me do that. And I have a network of DJs that I talk about. You had Mark Spin on last week.
Yes.
For his first time. Actually, he was doing it right here.
Mm-hmm.
He was over at my house. It was cool. I'm so happy he did that. That's great.
Yeah, it was good. Good night to get him involved and get that to break the ice.
Yeah. He was really excited about that. But, I have my network of DJs like him and JD Fisher and, Bill Herman and Mike Anderson and, all these people that I can call and just say, hey, I have this idea, or a client said this, and you know about this. So they start feeding me. Like, I don't know anything about Pokemon. I'm not a Poke person. I don't have kids in my house. I'm, a single guy that likes to play some online games, but Pokemon is definitely not one of them. And, so after about 2 weeks, I called him back and I says, okay, so I have this idea. And I like to incorporate video now. I'm doing a lot more video stuff the last couple of years, just adding another level to it. Like I did a dinner kissing thing. I started last year, and the best dinner kissing idea I ever came up with was Kiss Cam. That came out of a meeting where we're doing live video feed right there into the room, and we're going table to table to table. That was a creative idea. But anyways, for this guy and the Pokemon idea, this was so brilliant. Oh my gosh, it was the best ever. I'm not even joking. DJs that hear this are going to eat this up totally. So we created 16-bit Poke cards. The old Pokemonsters, they superimposed, the bride and groom helped me do this. They superimposed their wedding party's head over a Pokemonster on a card. So each card had like points, and then we created the most off the wall, like Poke powers, like this Pokemonster, Brewster or whatever. Their name was inside the Poke name somehow. And they had like one was wine drinking, the ability to drink wine. It was one of the bridesmaids. But for them, what we did is we put the wedding party in the room and we let them sit with all their family and friends. And we introduced the bride and groom, and we did a Poke hunt. And so we put up a Poke card with one of the groomsmen or bridesmaid on, and one at a time, they had to hunt that person through the room with a Pokeball. Because in Pokemon Go, you throw a Pokeball at monsters, it hits them, and you capture them. Yes. That's what happens.
Yeah.
Basically, that's probably the extent of my Pokemon knowledge. But they hunted their wedding party. Now, of course, the wedding party was involved, and we told them not to make it too difficult because of time. But they hit their wedding party with the Pokeball. They went and sat up at the head table. In fact, I shot video of that one. I ended up sending that to the bride and groom last December because she wanted it for Christmas to show once again to all her family that didn't make it to their wedding.
Sure.
Now, how many people am I going to get referrals from in that family?
Yes.
Right? And are they going to be more open to the creative ideas? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes that's a lot of pressure.
Oh, it certainly would be.
Yeah. You come up with some of these really wonderful things and you're like, oh man, how am I going to top that? Especially with repeat business.
Yes.
It's a lot to live up to. That's been my big struggle the last couple of years, is living up to some of the things that I've done
Yes.
overall.
I can see that.
Which is, I guess, a good problem to have.
Oh, for sure. And that's going to definitely continue to push the creative side, because you're going to be like, okay, so we did this, but now how do we up that game?
Right. How do we change this? But then they start at a spot that's open. You know what I mean? They're like, oh, you did this at my cousin's wedding. Okay. So now what can we do? So now we have to ask a whole nother series of questions and really get into it. And they're already at yes.
Yeah, they're at yes,
they're in. Yeah, and that Star Wars wedding I told you about. I drove through an Arby's restaurant 8 years after that wedding, and the lady at the drive-thru said to me, "Hey, I know you.
You're the
And
guy."
I go, well, post office wall, ha ha ha. She goes, no. She says, you DJ'd a friend of mine's wedding, Star Wars, and I was like, that was 8 years ago. She recognized me.
Wow.
I was like, dang, man. Can't buy that kind of advertising.
Yes. Wow.
Cannot buy that kind. And that's about me, but ultimately, to give their clients something so unique, for their day is an amazing thing. And I'll tell you, as an industry, we've moved that way. I mean, you probably noticed it. I mean, if you looked at early 2000s, we were, just still doing all the games stuff still. I'm finding that I'm doing less game activities at weddings these last few years, and I'm doing more creative things that are bigger type of things, overall, the poke hunts and stuff like that. So, yeah. We're getting close to time. You get me excited talking about this.
We're good. We're good. We've got time yet.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Before I go about this, and I just wanted to mention one other thing about the coronavirus thing. And I haven't watched all your episodes. I haven't been up to speed. And my heart goes out to all the DJs that are affected to this. Absolutely. But we have a golden opportunity as an industry right this second to change the narrative of who we are. And I want to encourage, there's, a lot of people that are either getting jobs completely taken away, or they're needing to be rescheduled. And there's really only so many of us. My ask of all the DJs listening tonight is to reach out to the other DJs in your community and offer your services. Say, hey, listen, I won't charge you what I normally charge. I just want to help you out. I did that today with a giant multi-op in my community who, is hit a lot harder than I am as a smaller company. He was appreciative to hear from me, overall. And this is a guy that we don't have great chemistry overall. But it's an opportunity to start building some bridges and to really show what it is to be a community of DJs and come together in a way that we've never come together before, because we're going to need it. The clients are going to need it. Venues are going to dictate a lot of this, but your availability, if you're a single op, is only you, and that's the same for me. I'm lucky I have Barb, who stopped doing, shows overall this year, who agreed to take any extra shows for me that might get, moved out.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of DJs that don't have a Barb. So please do that. Overall, I just can't say that enough. So.
And I think it's what we're going to run into is this fall is that, as you were saying, the ones who have to rebook shows, and they're going to have full dates, and they're going to have good clients that just are stuck without entertainment to a point, and being able to help them and serve them at a high level.
Well, I really want to help their company. I don't want to do it underneath my name. And that's what I told this guy. I says, listen, I know we've had some competitive nature in the past, but I'm in a spot where I might be able to help, and I'll do the show. I'll put your banner up, whatever you want me to do.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I'm not going to pass out my cards. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. Everything is going to be about your company when we do this. Because if I needed that help, gosh, I would hope somebody would reach out and talk to me that way.
Yeah.
Um, and I do have that help.
Hmm.
JD Fisher, Mark Span.
Yeah. Yeah. You got some folks that work back and forth.
I do. Yeah. So definitely. Yeah.
So before we wrap up,
Sure.
let's jump back to the creativity. We're talking to the bride and groom,
Sure.
and we're getting them excited. And you kind of
Yeah.
almost touched on it a little bit, where the mother didn't want the Star Wars costumes.
Yeah.
What do you, when you run into that parent that is like, oh, and they're not liking the concept, the bride and groom are like, oh my gosh, this is so great, and you're running into a little roadblock from parents. How do you handle situations like that?
Well, yeah, you have to know who the buyer is, of course, the decision maker. It's just like when you're making sales. A lot of times it isn't the bride and groom that's putting the money down, right? It is mom or dad. And they do have a say about it. So you may have to go through this whole thing again with them. You know what I mean? Where you may need to sit down and say, listen, here's where we're coming at. Okay. And one of the conversations I have with people is I talk about where we are as a culture, and we are an instant culture. Nothing proves it more than right now. I mean, Zoom, how popular is Zoom right now? I mean, how many Zoom meetings have you seen pop up with DJs just this last 2 weeks?
Yes.
We need to be entertained now. The memes about the football season being gone, I discovered my wife, all those fun things. There's truth to those in a sub level. And so, I talk to parents to them, and I say, hey, so here we are. We need to make, they are there for the I do's. Absolutely the number one most important thing of the day. Beyond a shadow of doubt. We're not messing with that. Okay. We can. I mean, I'm not ruling out creative aspects for a ceremony, and I would go there, but I haven't pushed that envelope yet myself. I am a Christian like yourself, John, and I have some sanctity of that. So I guess, I haven't done that yet.
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of the wedding is an entertainment function. And that's what I explain to parents is I say, hey, okay, here we are. We've got, we're going to do this. But so how many weddings have these people been to? And have you noticed people leaving? That's a really great question to tell people, say, hey, if you don't want your guests leaving, so these are some ideas that we can come up with to make sure that they're doing that. And it was like that story I told about that the lady up at Fortune Bay. She recommended me because I connected all the dots. And that's what I tell those people. I says, we're going to connect the dots from the second your guests get in the room. They're going to go, okay, so now we're going to start with the Grand March entrance. Oh my gosh, you just did that, the pokey thing? I've never seen anything like that. Wow. The next thing, the next event is, what are you going to do during dinner? What dinner kissing thing are you going to do that's different and unique?
Yeah.
So you have something else hitting that's, right after that. And then you come out of that with whatever the next thing is, and then into love story, and then a custom recording, and then into dancing, which you're, our most excellent DJs, and you've got an amazing night built around that. But you've connected all these dots, and the guests are just wowed. Through the dancing that, well, they don't want to leave. What's going to happen next? That's the question you want you get to your guest to is, what's going to happen next at this event? They're going to walk out going, oh my gosh, 8 years later at an Arby's, that was the best wedding I've ever been to in my entire life. I guess the last thing I would say about this is build a repertoire of ideas. Look for ideas, call other DJs, get ideas from them. You don't have to claim the ideas are your own when you're sitting down with the clients. In fact, it's best if you don't, if you've not done it before. Do not lie to your clients. When I came up with the dinner kissing idea, the kiss cam, I told them straight out, I'd never done anything like that before. I don't even know how to do it. But we did this early enough that I had time to research it. And then I was able to do live feed video wirelessly through a big venue, and it worked out really, really, really well. So much so I did it 3 times last year.
Oh, gee.
So it was a super popular option last year.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. So when you were talking, working your way through the activities and such that you do,
Yeah.
and the part that I always enjoy when a person is doing things like that and being more creative is the you get to a point where people are like, "What's next?"
Yeah.
And you
Exactly.
can see it in their
Yeah.
eyes, and
You can definitely see it.
it's
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
different than the times where like, "Oh, yeah, well, let's continue to have our conversation here because they're just gonna, he's gonna make an announcement. They're gonna go cut the cake, and then we'll,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that
Well, a lot
whole
of times I hear, wow, especially for people that haven't used me before. Yeah, Barb sells us in a creative fashion, but they don't know necessarily how creative we can be. They just know they've heard a couple creative ideas, you know. Now we're taking it up a notch, when we actually do that sit down. They've bought us on the idea of things like love story and custom recordings and stuff like that, but they don't realize that there's other possibilities out there.
hmm
And just explore them. I say we can always bring it back to here. Always. It's not a problem.
hmm
This is easy. This out here, this will take some planning. So let's start here. And if you don't like it, say no, and we'll not do it, and we'll come back to here. Pretty simple.
Sure.
I'm okay with that. I'm not married to this idea out here.
hmm
I'm just saying that that's an option. That's all it is.
So,
It's a
so the,
possibility.
we're talking about the possibilities, and they love the
Yeah.
possibilities, and they're excited
Yeah.
about the possibilities.
Right.
And then, as you say, this takes more work out here.
Right.
And sometimes it becomes that they just get overwhelmed as they get close. And we start talking, okay, we want to, we'll work on this
Right.
throughout the process, but how do you handle those situations where they just don't have the time as you get
Well,
there?
a lot of it is my work, and I want to implore that on them, that I'm doing the most work
hmm
overall on this. I want to make it as easy as possible for them, and I want to put a timetable up with them as early as possible. So typically, this planning meeting that I talk about is typically 4 months out from the wedding. So that's given me a long time. If you're doing this at 30 days, you have no chance.
Not a chance at all. No.
No chance. Really, and that's why right now it's such a great time to do this. We've got nothing else to do. You can sit down and play another, game of whatever and and be bored, or you can create something amazing for your clients and then try to figure out how to do it. And that's the other thing. Reach out in yourself, grow yourself.
hmm
Adding video, you had to do this, John. I mean, with the whole DJ News, that TV thing, I can't even imagine the learning process that took. That wasn't, there was that original idea, hey, I want to put this web's content out there. But then all of a sudden you keep upping it, and now you're doing it live every night of the week. That didn't start that way.
Yeah, certainly not.
Yeah. And, it's the same way with this. You need to learn how to up your game and challenge yourself. You'll find you'll get addicted to it. And sometimes
Yes.
you get a little disappointed when you don't get to do stuff. Like when I have to do a pretty basic wedding, gosh, I come out of those weddings going, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
this was a good wedding.
It,
But to me,
it was, yeah,
but it isn't my day. And
was a good
that's the story I have to tell myself. This isn't my day.
hmm
This is their day. They got what they wanted, and it was fantastic for them, and I'm happy. But there are days where I come out of them and I go, gosh, we could have done so much more here,
Yep. And
Yeah.
yet they're happy and
Yeah.
they're you were fabulous. You gave us exactly what we wanted, and it's like
Yeah.
you're so welcome. But in the back of the head, it's like, oh, you know what?
And I've had people pull back even the night of, and be
Yes.
okay with that too. I see that happening a little bit more with some of the throw off stuff that we do. I guess I don't even know if I want to call it throw off stuff. Garter and bouquet tosses and money dances now. I've seen those last minute. Just we're having a great time. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'm good. Let's mix it up.
hmm You mentioned earlier that games for a while there we had more activities and more games that we were doing such as that. That's an area that's just absolutely it's interesting to me how a lot of the wedding formalities, the garter bouquet, what have you, and the interaction that we used to do that was so popular. I mean, that drove requests or I should say referrals for many of shows and for a long time, but the way that has just fallen to the side. Or I'll have a couple. We had a couple of couples from last summer who saw me years ago doing these things, and they're like, that one activity you used to do, can you do a version of that at our wedding? We'd really love to see it. And it's like, no problem. And then you get there and it's exactly as you say. They're like, oh, we're having such a great time. Let's just scrap that idea.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, you have to be okay with that.
yeah.
I looked back at a couple of my timelines from like 2003,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like I had activities like every 15 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, I was doing games. I probably did, 5, 6 games a night, or some sort. Between limbo, I guess I called the game, but all those stuff.
There
There
was
was
always,
always
yeah.
activities going on.
Mm-hmm.
Dancing, 15 minutes, activity, some activity. And now I couldn't even dream of doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just thinking.
It's
So,
weird.
we'd have the he said, she said is what we call it, which is the shoe game.
Yeah.
We had the scavenger hunt we would do.
Yeah.
We did the groomsmen would do the YMCA. No, excuse me,
Yeah.
bridesmen were doing YMCA at the time because the groomsmen were doing the lip sync to Old Time Rock and Roll. We had the bride and groom who would do Summer Nights. Something from Greece. I mean,
Yeah.
these were all part of the
Remember
different
getting the
things.
glasses for that?
Yeah, exactly. You had all
Yeah.
the corny, crazy things there, and of course,
Yeah.
and the guitars and things would work their way out at some point in time. Yeah, it was 15
Do
minutes.
people even buy stuff from Oriental Trading anymore? I mean, is that still a company?
I know they're out there, yes, because I think
Yeah.
schools are the only ones who buy it.
I
But
used to have stock in that company.
our friends over at like Rhode Island, they still
Yeah.
exist and such, but they sell more things at some of these different trade shows than they do at entertainment trade shows now. Like there was a retail trade show that would have happened in Vegas last week, and they will do tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business at that
Sure.
show compared to someplace that is based on entertainment because they'll supply those little inflatables that you see at the nickel and dime gift shops when you're traveling. That's where they come from.
You know what I was trying to find just about a month and a half ago was one of those roll-up limbo sticks.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
those, I can't find it.
Rob
I looked
Peters.
everywhere for it. I couldn't find one.
Yeah,
I can
Rob.
find an inflatable plastic one that I don't like to blow up and unblow up every use.
Yeah,
I
don't.
mean,
Yeah.
but I could not find the roll-up ones, and those were everywhere. $20.
Yep. The gentleman actually who is running Photo Booth Expo, he's the guy that started bringing those to different trade shows, Rob Savakis. And
Really?
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was just kind of a little trivia thing there that's kind of how he started at trade shows, was with the limbo poles. But
That was
yeah.
amazing, by the way.
Oh yeah, they're fabulous.
The Photo Booth Expo.
Oh yeah.
Holy mackerel! Was that the showroom? Just massive.
Yeah, it was.
I don't even know how they're going to do both Mobile Beat and that. As far as Expo room, I mean, there was a photo booth in there, a photo something or another, that was. I've never seen a DJ company or a DJ production company even come close to the size of booth that they
Isn't
had.
that something? Yeah, they had.
I know.
There's some
It's
massive
crazy.
in there. But yeah, that was a fun event, and
Was.
looking
Yeah.
forward to
Enjoyed it.
2021 with how things will be changing out there and such with the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Change is good. It's good to get some things, and thanks to Ryan and them for doing this for so many years. Overall, he did a great job. So but shaking it up is always a good thing too. So
yeah, 14 Ryan and the crew were. Says 2007 would have been their first year, so that would have been
Right.
13. Yeah, 13.
Yeah, I
years.
remember. I remember when that switched. So
Yeah, it was didn't seem like, and on one hand, it doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
It
but
doesn't.
then you start looking at it, it's like, that was 13, 14 years ago.
it was. Yeah.
We've been around for a few years there, Dean.
Gosh, I know, it's just crazy. I start looking back now, and I'm like, yeah, I have been doing this a long time.
Oh yeah, exactly. In the early 2000s, when we were getting together down at Mystic Lake and
Yeah.
doing the shows down there and such, and it's just how time flies when we're having fun.
I love it. I still love it. I'm excited about this year. I really am. I'm very positive right now.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people aren't, but I am. I'm ready for it. And I'm knee deep in planning with people. I'm meeting with them on Skype Skype meetings all the time now.
Sure.
So I use Skype. It works out well for me. I don't do the Apple thing, so I don't know how to do FaceTime on my regular PC. Don't even know if I can, but I've had a few people that want me to. So
Yeah, you got to
I
get
may
you.
just say, how about Zoom?
Yeah, go Zoom. Zoom works better. Then you don't have to have anybody's contact
Right.
information. Works well.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Dean, we're gonna
No
wrap
doubt.
things up. Thank you much
Okay.
for being on tonight
Yeah.
and sharing and such some tips and ideas for being a little more creative with your weddings and
Right.
events. Good stuff. Good stuff as always. Gang, we'll be back in about 15 minutes here at the top of the hour. We're actually going to be over on our PBN TV, our Photo Booth News TV. We're going to be coming and talking about, in a photo booth world, using props and different accessories to really enhance that side of your business. So we'll be back at the top of the hour with Eric Wilson. Thanks again, Dean.
Thanks.